Hi, this has been quite difficult for me to record this. This is the third time I've tried to record this, and I found myself rambling quite a lot. And the last time I missed a couple of very important points. Good morning. Something that came up yesterday from the comments, and I appreciate the you guys giving me feedback and food for thought to carry on with this series. When we were talking about the subject of phenomenology, Tanith raised a very interesting point, is that how much does our environment affect our creativity and the art that we manifest. And I think more specifically, how much does our locality of environment affect our art? And there are a couple of things that this kind of reminded me on that I didn't manage to cover in my replies. And we'll take a little bit more time to explain. I've been a part of the Southwest Synth community for about 2 years now. In particular, the synth community focused around Falmouth, with the art college and the music college down there. And also it being Studentville. There are a lot of functioning nights out down there. There are a lot of pubs with folk music in. And through talking with my friends, shout out to you all at Falmouth Emon, you know who you are. I've quite often received a fairly surprised reaction when talking about how Cornwall has a sound. And I think as a group, we've come to the conclusion that it's not just the Sangha or the group that you're with. It's not just the way you've trained yourself with the music you listen to and the music that you play and the instruments that you play, but it's also the very environment itself. As the lovely Luke Magna Lux suggested, some of it is in the sounds of nature which you can hear around you, including my very upset dog because he wants to go home. It's cold and wet out here. So some of it is in the sound of the wind, the sound of the birds, the sounds of the sea, which is a big thing for down here. But I think there's also a ancestral memory to the land. I think when we talk about energetic systems like, for want of a better word, ley lines, geomanticism, sacred spaces, I think there's a certain amount of memory held within the land that you live. And this is from my own kind of shamanic practices. And also from, looking at what's being made in various areas around the world. I haven't been everywhere, but I think a profound clue is the fact that before the internet and before, I suppose you could say, modern culture, certainly before the Renaissance. Folk culture was actually quite localized. You could go, say, we talked yesterday, Bulgarian rhythms, 13/8 rhythms. So those 13/8 rhythms, you might go 200 miles east and west, or west, and find them using completely different tunings and completely different rhythms. When allowed to form naturally without the benefits of modern technology, when we look at music culture, we actually find it's a lot more localized than we think. There are hundreds and hundreds and thousands of various different types of folk music from Middle Ages and before. And it is very localized. It tends to be around 200 square miles, a radius of 200 square miles. So you get these little patches with their own distinct, very distinct in some cases, musical styles. Which is one of the fascinating things I find about doing the music that I do, is that I can pull, say, a Persian tuning and know that I will never run out of local musical tradition to immerse myself into when I'm manifesting my stuff. So I think this is a very strong indication that yes, indeed, locality has a very understated influence on creativity. We're living in a quite strange times. We're creating these communities that are quite often in globally different, continentally different areas. And not only that, there's a kind of amorphism, I think, that is happening, which is very concerning to me. And I think this amorphism comes from two areas. I think it comes from artists that make product. Artists that restrict their output to genres, and therefore tend to not allow their creativity to breathe, not allow their manifested works to sculpt themselves. And maybe that's something we'll talk about at a later date. But we can't deny, and this was going to come up sooner or later in these diaries, we can't deny the influence of AI on modern music, in particular music that is, for want of a better word, product. AI will never be able to phenomenologically represent a locality, because by nature it's a composite algorithm. So I think for me, I may not. We may not be able to tell the difference on a surface level between AI music, although for me being microtonal, it's not so much of a concern. AI will really struggle reproducing what microtonalists do. But I think it's important to localize oneself before you engage in the creative act, more so these days, because that is part of your music that can't be recreated. It can't be imitated. So going forwards, I think it's very important for musicians, particularly non-microtonal musicians, to localize themselves spiritually and socially, and tap into this geomantic memory that lives in the land. And yes, you may not be a spiritualist like myself or a philosopher, but sometimes it's enough just to go out and hang out with your real life friends and hang out with your mates and find a community that you can hug and learn from each other and develop from each other within that geomantic framework. Subliminally in some cases. So I think my point being today is that I think for me, as a result of thinking about this, I think when I go home and I sit in the studio, I think I'm going to start grounding myself a little bit more carefully in the sproul, in the dragon energy that lives in our glorious county, and maybe you should do the same. I hope this has been helpful, and as usual, leave the comments down below, and if you've got any ideas for things you might want me to talk about, let me know. This has actually been fairly short. So I'll be seeing you tomorrow, and I'm off back into the rain and the mud. Have a good day. Keep jamming.